The matchstick that changed the war opening atmospheric tension. The sky above Guadalcanal burns with the fury of 1,000 suns. August 7, 1942. The air trembles with the roar of radial engines and the staccato percussion of 50 caliber machine guns. American Wildcat fighters, stubby, barrel-chested warriors of the sky, dance a desperate ballet with their Japanese adversaries. But this isn't a dance of equals. This is a massacre waiting to happen. The Mitsubishi 6M0. Even its name whispers death. Lighter than a feather. Faster than thought. More maneuverable than anything the Americans have ever encountered. For 9 months, it has ruled the Pacific skies with absolute dominion, cutting down every challenger with surgical precision. American pilots have learned to fear its elegance, to respect its lethality, to die beneath its guns. But something is about to change. Something so simple, so impossibly small, that it would fit in the palm of your hand. A wooden matchstick. One single matchstick. And the man who understood what it meant. Act 1, The Crisis. Lieutenant Commander John Smith Thatch sits in the cockpit of his Grumman F4F Wildcat, and he knows the mathematics of death. The Wildcat, affectionately called the flying barrel by those who fly it, is a brute. 400 miles per hour at maximum velocity. Decent armament. Armor that can take punishment. But against the Zero, it's a lumbering elephant trying to catch a hummingbird. The Zero climbs faster, turns tighter, accelerates quicker. In a traditional dogfight, a Wildcat trying to outturn a Zero is a dead man making his final mistake. The statistics paint a grim portrait of aerial warfare. American pilots are dying 3-1, 4-1, sometimes worse. Young men who have barely tasted life are falling from the sky in flames, their families receiving telegrams that shatter homes from California to Maine. Thatch has watched his wingman die. He has seen the Zero's terrible grace, the way it seems to pivot on invisible axes, how it can flip from hunter to killer in the span of a heartbeat. He has returned to base alone too many times, the empty spaces in formation haunting him like ghosts. The question burns in his mind, relentless and unforgiving: how do you defeat perfection? The Americans have tried everything. They've practiced barrel rolls until their bodies ached. They've studied reconnaissance photos until their eyes burned. They've debriefed with every survivor, cataloged every encounter, analyzed every engagement. Nothing works. The Zero remains untouchable, a metallic deity dispensing death from above. Act 2, The Revelation. But Thatch refuses to accept the unacceptable. In his quarters, surrounded by manuals and combat reports, he begins to think differently. If you cannot outmaneuver your enemy, you must outthink him. If you cannot match his strengths, you must exploit his weaknesses. And every weapon, no matter how perfect, has a weakness. He studies the Zero's tactics. The Japanese pilots are trained killers, samurai of the sky, indoctrinated with Bushido and the honor of aerial combat. They hunt alone or in pairs, confident in their superiority. They commit to attacks with absolute conviction, diving in for the kill with no hesitation, no doubt. That confidence, Thatch realizes, is the crack in the armor. On his desk, he has matchsticks. Simple wooden matchsticks. He begins moving them across the surface, creating patterns, simulating flight paths. To matchsticks representing Wildcats. One representing a Zero. He moves them again and again, testing angles, exploring possibilities. The other pilots think he's lost his mind. A man playing with matchsticks while the world burns. But in those matchsticks, Thatch sees something no one else can see. A geometry of survival. A mathematics of mutual protection. A way to turn the Wildcat's weaknesses into strengths and the Zero's strengths into fatal vulnerabilities. Act 3, The Weave. The concept is elegant in its simplicity, revolutionary in its execution. Two Wildcats flying side by side, separated by roughly 200 feet. When a Zero attacks one Wildcat, that pilot doesn't try to outrun it, that's suicide. Instead, he turns toward his wingman. The wingman, seeing the Zero pursuing his partner, turns toward the threat. The two Wildcats cross paths. weaving through each other's flight path like threads in a deadly tapestry. The Zero, committed to its attack, suddenly finds itself not chasing one target but flying directly into the guns of the second Wildcat. Turn away, and the original target completes his turn and gets a shot. Press the attack, and fly into a wall of 50 caliber rounds. It's a trap. A beautiful, lethal trap. The thatch weave, as it will come to be known, transforms the Wildcat's sluggishness into an advantage. Slow becomes steady. Heavy becomes stable. What was once a liability becomes the foundation of an unbreakable defensive formation. But theory is one thing. Combat is another. The real test comes in the burning skies above the Pacific, where mistakes are measured in lives and failure means death. Act FOU or Baptism by Fire, June 4, 1942. The Battle of Midway. The fate of the Pacific War hangs by a thread. Japanese carriers steam toward their destiny, their decks laden with Zeros eager to feast on American blood. Thatch leads his squadron into the maelstrom, the weave tested in actual combat. The Zeros come screaming out of the sun, just as they always do, confident and lethal. They pick their targets, commit to their attacks. This is what they've done 100 times before. This is what always works. But this time, the Wildcats don't panic. They don't break formation. They weave. The first Zero pilot watches in confusion as his target turns toward another Wildcat instead of away. He presses his attack, certain of his kill. Then he sees the other Wildcat turning toward him, tracers already reaching out across the sky. He has a choice: abandon his attack or die. He chooses life, breaking off. But now he's defensive, and the initiative is lost. Another Zero attacks. The same dance begins. The Wildcats weave, protect each other, create a defensive zone that cannot be penetrated. Where Zeros once dominated through superior maneuverability, they now find themselves in a tactical nightmare, able to execute the attacks that have always worked. American pilots, who have spent months waiting to die, suddenly find themselves winning. The matchstick formation, born on a desk thousands of miles from combat, proves itself in blood and fire. Zeros fall. The hunters become the hunted. Closing legacy. The thatch weave spreads through the Pacific Fleet like wildfire. Squadrons adopt it. Pilots practice it. What began with wooden matchsticks becomes doctrine, becomes standard procedure, becomes the difference between survival and annihilation. American kill ratios reverse. The Zero, once invincible, becomes just another aircraft, dangerous but beatable. John Thatch didn't build a better plane. He didn't invent a new weapon. He simply saw what others couldn't see, thought what others couldn't think. He took the tools he had and used them better than anyone thought possible. In warfare, as in life, victory doesn't always belong to the fastest or the strongest. Sometimes it belongs to the one who thinks differently. To the one who refuses to accept that defeat is inevitable. To the one who sees possibility in a handful of matchsticks. For slow Wildcats started beating Zeros because one man understood a fundamental truth. You don't have to be better than your enemy at everything. You just have to be better at the one thing that matters most. That's the difference between tactics and genius, between following the rules and rewriting them entirely. One matchstick trick. One brilliant mind, one formation that changed the war.